Everybody hanging with us today. We've got a really good crowd, almost 80 right now from all over the state, Morehead City. We've got a bunch of names popping up, so we're real pleased to see that. Thank you for checking in again. Let me get rolling here since we're just past 10. I'm not going to read. I know everybody on this phone call, or this webinar rather, knows how to read, and I'm not going to read Brian Hamilton's introduction, but I'm going to tell you a really quick story. I'll get to you who I am in a second. My name's Todd Lyden. I'm the director at Bladen Community College's Small Business Center, and I met Brian about 10 years ago, and it was through one of his huge endeavors that's still a huge part of his life and his initiatives, the Inmates to Entrepreneurs program. And one of the few things that's changed in that time, Brian looks like he's immortal. One of the questions we need to ask him is how he stays looking so young. Meanwhile, the biggest change is that's me. I never show myself on webinars. I'm known as a webinar guy, but the only thing that's changed in almost 10 years is I'm uglier and have less hair. So clearly, there's a huge difference there. A couple of things we need to talk about. I want to thank everybody signed up through their local community college. We have 12 community colleges that have participated throughout the eastern part of the state, from Durham all the way to the coast to Wilmington. And as everybody's been checking in from all over, so we appreciate you doing that. And make sure you thank those folks at the small business centers, the directors, the people who hooked you up with this. It's this cooperative kind of stuff that allows us to do this. Let me cover the administrative steps real quick. As I mentioned, if you have problems, there's the phone numbers with the webinar ID. I'll pop those up in the chat. Please use the Q&A or the chat function to answer questions. We'll try to reserve some for the end, but I was told Brian said he'll be happy to answer as we go through. And if you stick around till the end, we'll have a special download link for a white paper that goes along with this topic really, really well. A little bit of additional information and other resources and stuff that you can make use of. As I think almost everybody's figured out, we're using the chat function, the Q&A. I shouldn't have to really, it looks like, go over this at all too much because it looks like you've all got it down pat. So I am unmuting the folks there and letting them hook it up. They're going to steal the show from me. Hey, there's Brian. Hang on, let me stop sharing. So Brian, I'm going to mute myself and you are up and running.
Okay. I think we're live. So here we are. So first of all, I have to say, I don't think I'm immortal. I mean, I'm close, but anyway, Todd, that was very funny when you did the before and after on your hairline. And I'm hanging on by threads here. So, it's funny, I've been doing communication for a long time and I'm speaking to like this little laptop thing or whatever. So it's, I'm having a conversation with a laptop, but Todd's picture's there. So I feel at home a little bit. This format's new to me. I'll do what I can. I hope that you guys will get a lot out of it. And what I'm talking about is definitely near and dear to my heart. So I've done this. I've actually done this a long time. So I hope you'll get something out of it. The one thing I'd ask if Todd's still listening, because I see a static photo here. He's probably listening.
I'm still here.
Oh, hey, look at that. We get to interact. That would be great, by the way. You can ask me questions as we go through and, make it more interactive. But
we will.
I'm going to outline something that to me is really obvious but not covered. I think it's really important. And I want to say a couple of things as I open. First of all, Todd, thanks for inviting me. It's been a while. I've known you for a while. And I also thank Ann Shaw, who's I guess she's now big time. She's the statewide director of all small business centers. And just to give you some perspective, Todd, when I came here for business school, graduated in '90, and I literally started my career with the small business centers. I was one of those guys on the rubber chicken circuit doing the seminars and stuff like that at night. And I was 27 years old, and Bill Morgan of Beaufort Community College gave me my first job, my first check in North Carolina. So when I say I'm grateful to the small business centers, I mean, I literally started my career with what you guys do. You're terrific. And Ann's a great director and just an unbelievable person, as you know. But anyway, enough about that. I'm going to talk about something. I don't know whether it takes me 2 minutes, 2 hours. I do this in middle schools and high schools. I speak at small business centers. I'm an entrepreneur resident at a few colleges now. But it's really how to start a business with a low amount of money. And I I get kind of a kick out of this because I don't know how people start business with money. You know, like most of the business I've started have been low capital businesses. So what I'm talking about today, I really know. I don't know many entrepreneurs like our vice president of public affairs in the eastern part of the state, Tom Bennett, ran a contracting business. I go back to Tom. I've known Tom for 35 years. How did you start a business? He probably started a business with $1,000 or less. That's how I started. So in a way, I'm really glad to do this session, but it's a bit of a misnomer because I really don't know many people who get well capitalized to start a business. So I mean, I really know this stuff and I've done it. And I'll tell you one funny story too. It's fairly interesting. The tech guys always think they know everything. You saw my background there. I went from landscaping in my 20s. I ran a coin laundromat chain. I sold the coin laundromat chain, I think early 30s, late 20s, to start Sageworks, which is a tech company. The point is I've been all over the board. And I sold the coin laundromat business and used that money to capitalize Sageworks. So, but I've been in the technology realm for 20 years. But my point is I was given this talk in Wilmington, North Carolina. A really nice guy was there, but a tech guy, and you question and answer, this type of format, but a question and answer thing. And he raises his hand. He goes, well, first of all, I don't know how anybody would start a business with less than $10,000. And I said, well, of course you wouldn't. You're in technology. But there's 26 million businesses in the country, and the vast majority of them start low capital businesses for sometimes less than $500. So let's go through that. And I'm going to give you the steps. And I might fill in some stories, you know, keep it interesting and fill some stuff in, but it's not complicated. Let's say we want to start a lawn service business, a painting contract business, a babysitting business, a pooper scooper business, which is a great business, by the way. People don't like doing that. We want to start window washing. We want to do car detailing. What would we do? Well, first, we've got to pick something that we're interested in, that we like to do, or certainly we don't hate doing it where other people really don't like to do it, you know? So this is a service business, right? Are we going to start a manufacturing facility for $1,000 or less? The answer is no, probably not, right? We're not going to do that. Are we going to start a full service sit down restaurant for less than $1,000? I'd say no, probably not. So we're talking about starting low capital service businesses here. And it's important to keep in mind of 26 million businesses in the US, the vast majority of them are low capital service businesses. So what I'm talking about is not one of these no money down real estate things from the 80s that some of you remember those shows, you know, buy real estate with no money down. And what they forget to tell you is you can buy real estate with no money down, but you spend the next 35 years overpaying through interest payments. They left that out of that program. But my point is, what I'm talking about is absolutely doable. So let's say we want to start a painting contract business. We are going to put paint on walls. I mean, we have about 50 minutes today, and I want to get a lot of questions. I don't know when we're going to break to questions, but I don't want to make this more complicated than it is. I'm going to give like maybe 2 or 3 examples. We want to put paint on walls and get paid to do that. What would I do? Well, the first thing that I would do is I would run an ad in Craigslist. I think it's still free. I think those guys are still doing whatever they do. You put that ad out there. Maybe you do a little social media, but I make flyers. And a flyer is a piece of paper. That's what a flyer is, you know, it's a piece of paper, and you put your ad on there. And I always do the same ad. I copy the ad. I can't remember phrase this the right way, but I copy the ad. I put it on one side and I put it on the other. So for every 8.5, 11 sheet of paper, I can make 2 flyers. That's what I like to do. And on this flyer, which is a piece of paper, what do you put on there? And if this seems basic, by the way, it is. I love the small business centers. I love all the support of SCORE and all these people who help people run businesses, but they're always complicating things. I love these people. We do it in business school. Business school is the worst, by the way. But we make things too complicated. This is easy. We're going to make this really easy. But it took me 40 years to make this easy. So we got a flyer. It's a piece of paper. We put information on there. Maybe the name of our business, what we do, maybe what we charge. Probably put a phone number on there. People still use phones, I think, you know. You put email address on there. Maybe put a little logo on there. But if it's me, remember ease. We want things to be simple. And make sure you start writing the questions down because I want to hear from you after I'm done with my thing. But if it's me, this flyer is going to take me 2 hours. If it takes you 2 years to develop a flyer, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. If it takes you 2 minutes, you're sloppy. This is 2-3 hours. We make a simple flyer and we make copies. Now that's going to cost us $50. I don't know how much flyers are these days. It used to be about a penny a piece when I ran the laundromats. There's not a lot of them, but we're going to make a flyer. And then we're going to put that flyer in strategic places. So if I'm a painting person, I might put on my mailboxes in a neighborhood where I want to paint. I'm going to go talk to some of these painting companies. I'll go down and I forget the name of the vendors. I used to do painting, but I forget the name of the vendors, Benjamin Moore or whatever. And I might go visit the painting companies and say, hey, I'm going to be a painter, and give them a flyer. I'm going to introduce myself to people. I'm going to make little business cards. The business card is a flyer, but it's smaller. It's $15. This is about how to start a business with less than $1,000. I'm going to try to do it for less than $100 or $200 here. But I'm going to make this flyer and I'm going to get the word out. I'm going to have business cards. I'm going to give them to everybody. Okay. I might run an ad in my town newspaper. I don't know if they have town newspapers anymore. I think they do. I was at the fair last week and I was walking through. I haven't read a newspaper in 10 years. And the News and Observer, they give the News and Observer out at the fair, some of you know. And it's gotten a lot thinner, but you might do an ad in a local newspaper. I don't know if I'd put the money into that. I don't think you get the bang for the buck. But I'm going to get the word out. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to talk to friends. I'm going to do social media. I might do a Facebook thing. Will I make a website? You might make a website. And remember, I was in technology for 20 years. I wouldn't make a website. Not on day one. And this is where I want to slow it down. And I want you to write your questions out. Don't be embarrassed. There are no dumb questions. Because again, this is 40 years all condensed. For me, before I talk about what you're going to do, we got our flyer made. We're putting our flyer out. We're going to make 50, 100 flyers. You don't make 50,000 flyers. It's too expensive. And one flyer is not enough. You might make 50, 100, 150, 200 flyers, and you get them out. 500 flyers. Depends on how much money you've got. But let me take a commercial break here while I look at Todd's picture. It's still on there. Todd, your picture's still on there. But while I do that, what wouldn't I do? For me, this is me. You do what you want to do. I'm not going to spend 6 months doing a business plan for a painting business. I'm not going to go raise venture capital for a painting business. I'm definitely not going to borrow money. No, I don't want to borrow money. I want to be cash flow positive early. For those of you who have credit cards, which is basically all of you, you know the dangers of credit cards. You get the money, it's no interest. The next year, it's like 18% interest, right? I don't want to borrow money. I want to bootstrap. I want to build my business with nothing. And literally nothing. I want this business, I want to start it for $250 or less, and I can do it. Okay. But no, for me, some people like business plans. That's fine. But for a painting business, if I know the market, if I know what I'm doing, I don't do a business plan. You want to do it? No problem. But I want to make money, and I want to make money in a week, not a year from now, not 6 months from now. I want to turn cash. And the reason, so do we want an accounting system? I don't know. I mean, do people still have shoeboxes? I don't know if shoeboxes are on, but I want to make money, then count it. I don't want to be doing accounting before I even make money. So my point is, in this session, I want to get you, and I'm going to rewrap these steps to make it more clear. But there's a lot of things I don't want to do. And there's a lot of bad information out there around entrepreneurship. That's why I started the foundation. Bad information, because people haven't done it. It's like getting coached by someone who hasn't played football. I mean, well, maybe they don't have to be a pro player, but did you ever put a helmet on and get hit? I've been an entrepreneur. So if you want to do a business plan, no worries, do a business plan. I don't want to borrow money. I might seek advice from people. I might do that, but I kind of know the painting business. I'm going to make a flyer. I'm going to make a flyer. We could do that. I could get middle school kids and high school kids. They're doing it all through North Carolina, by the way. They can make a flyer, 50 flyers. You put them out. You got business cards. I'm not worrying about too much about LLC, LLP, corporations, joint venture agreements. And there's 26 million businesses in the country. The vast majority of them are sole proprietorships. It's just you. You use your social security number to start the business. Some countries are not like that. I mean, one of my friends ran for president of Malawi. It's a mess over there. New business formation, you got to get the government to approve you to start a business. Nothing's happening over there. It's a mess. They do a lot of poverty, and they can't get entrepreneurship going because they just make it too difficult. In this country, once you say you're an entrepreneur and you're in business, you're in business. You have what's called a social security number. That's all you need. You can be a sole proprietor. If you want to be an LLC or corporation, you can ask me questions during, when we do the question and answer. But right now, flyer. 50 or 100 of them, maybe 200.
Will you entertain a question?
Sure. Is that Todd?
That's me.
Todd.
That's all you're going to hear.
I can't see a picture up to yet. But I will. But let me just get step one.
Okay.
We're good. I want to get questions as I go. Otherwise, I'll bore myself.
You let me know when you're ready.
We got a flyer. We want to be a painter. We're motivated to be a painter. We got a flyer. We make 50 or 100 of them. We get the word out. That's step number one. So remember, that's a very important step. And then we can talk about the next things I'm going to talk about. But let me grab a question. Todd, I like questions while I'm talking, so it's great.
Oh, good, because you've got a bunch, and we're going to try and keep them flowing with where you're going. Penny asks, start, instead of a website, focus on social media, perhaps either Facebook page, Instagram for the business instead of the web page maybe initially. What do you think?
Penny, I agree with you. I think you're right. And I think social media, especially if you're young and you're not ancient like me, is good. And I think if you do it quickly, right? And I'm not splicing my words, but I want to get to cash in my painting business in a couple of weeks. So I'm not a big social media person. They say I'm on that thing. I'm out on social media somewhere, but that's not my thing. But if it's good for you, great. But remember, Todd, and Penny, it's a good point. I'm not a rebuttal. I want to go right to my customers. So social media is interesting, right? But is some person going to pick that up from Texas or something like that? I don't know. They might. If I put my flyers out in a targeted neighborhood where people have money to spend, I know I'm getting my advertisement. I got my bomb going right on my target. So I think she's right. And you might want to start a website. You get these website things you can start like in a couple hours. No problem. But go right where your customer is. It's a great point, Todd. It's a great way to open up our questions. Because again, my trade between 8 and 18 was football. School was I was not interested in that at all. And that was my trade, right? In football, they do this thing called a 40-yard dash. And, it's important. They measure it, right? But really in football, it's the first 3 yards when you fire off the line. That makes the difference, right? Same thing in business. What are we going to start with, right? I want to get money and I want to go right to where my customer is. So you can use social media and you might even do a website. No worries. But I want to get my advertisement strategically right on my target. So why don't we ask another question and I'll keep going.
I've got a good follow-up to that, Brian. We've got Caroline asked something that kind of goes along with something that another person asked about, the best overall way to do marketing, but then also, would you join groups or pay for leads, something like Home Advisor, for example?
Yeah, it's a great question. Is that Caroline or Caroline?
Caroline, I guess, yeah.
Caroline, okay. That's a great question.
And Rodney.
No, it's good stuff, Todd. That's why I really prefer questions as I'm going, because I've been it's like playing a violin. I've been playing so long that I don't want to leave these details out. I would not do that. I would not do that. It's a great question. I want to make money before I pay money. That's just me. I want money coming in, and then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to spend it. So Home Advisor and Trip Advisors and Nancy's List and Angie's List, and my friend Tom Bennett, who's running this whole Eastern thing, he put this whole thing together. Thank you, Tom. He's in the room. He might answer that one better. But I some of these things is kind of like a feel for the ball, being an entrepreneur, Caroline. Me, without even asking Tom, would be the expert for this question. I want to make money before I spend it. That's just me. Now, remember one thing, Todd, I got to mention. The older I get, the more experience I get, the less confidence I have. It's really true. Because I realized, like, when I was young, I had all this confidence. I used to speak for the small business centers, and I was 27, 28. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I had a lot of confidence. But as you get experience, you learn about all the things that you thought you were right about, but you're not right about. So I always rank things 1 to 5. 1's an opinion, politics, religion, family members, that's 1. And 5 is mathematical certainty. 1 is, I think I'm good looking, which is funny, right? 1's an opinion. 5 is 2 + 2 = 4. So on Caroline's question, Todd, I'm a 3. I'm not a 4. I'm not a 5. I'm a 2.5, 3. That's just me. I don't like paying money. I'm cheap. And I want to preserve my capital. I want to go get money. And once I get money, then I figure out where I want to spend it. Now, one thing for those of you who are starting out, there's a feel for the ball. Like when I was a receiver when I was a kid, right? You run a post pattern, the quarterback throws the ball, you got to run to the ball. You can't keep running your pattern. So as you get a little experience, Tom knows this. Tom, you know this, right? You do know this, even though you don't think you definitely know. You learn when to spend money and when not to. And Todd, it's very hard to teach that. But if I want to start my business for less than $1,000, I don't want to be writing checks because I know I'm going to need that money to advertise. It's a great question, Caroline. It's too long of an answer, but good question.
I didn't know if you were going to get into this, but if you're going to lead into this, but you have 2 great questions that kind of go side by side, which is best tips for minimizing liability. And somebody basically said, what about insurance?
Yeah. Wow. We're on technology. This thing's probably recorded, so I have to watch what I say. So that depends. Grown-ups, to me, usually make that much bigger deal than it really is. So for example, if I cut your lawn, right? I cut your lawn. Well, is there a liability to that? Maybe I'll, God forbid, I run over your cat or hit a stone. And I've been cutting lawns for 40 years. It's never happened where I hit a stone and it shot out. So to me, there's low liability to that. Do I get insurance for that? I might do that. But Todd, this is why the small business centers are really important. Common sense, right? If I'm cutting a lawn, do I need a $10 million umbrella policy for that? No. Do I need $1 million? Probably not. Do I need any insurance before I start? For me, I wouldn't. That's just me. But if I do it for a couple of months, yeah, maybe I'll buy a little insurance. It's just me. That's where you have to make a decision. With regarding the limited liability companies and corporations, in my opinion, it's a 2 out of 5. 1's an opinion, 5's a fact. It's a 2. For me, it's a 4. People, again, make that, they're incorporated too quickly, in my opinion. Because when you form a corporation, you're supposed to have a board and shareholders and board meetings and minutes. And so to me, you get perceived protection, but you don't get real protection because an attorney can come in and break a corporate veil on most corporations in America because they're not really run as corporations, as separate people. So the adults, like us, most of us here, we complicate that. I'm a sole proprietor if I'm a painting company. I'm a sole proprietor if I'm a lawn cutting person. If I have a pooper scooper business, which is a great business, by the way, I'm a sole proprietor. If I'm going to cut down trees, What's my net worth? Is it 0? Well, it's different if then my net worth is $1 million. That's going to dictate whether I'm an LLC. I can't answer it in the confine of this, this session, but generally I want simple. I want to be cash flow positive, and then I'm going to spend my money. That's just me. Let me take one more question. I want to keep going on, and Todd, and then we can kind of come back to some of this.
I've got a great one here from Cheryl. It's, how do I determine the range of earning potential if you go to see somebody at the SBC talking about building capital to go forward?
Okay. I don't know if I understand the question. Todd, do you want to help me with that? Do you mind? Or I just want to make sure I answer the right question.
I think she's asking, I'll ask her to hit us up again.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to it. But the other one, we've got a couple of very specific questions following up on the liability issue, for example, asking about using a waiver for somebody who's a hands-on science educator. Tara McKee, she's saying uses an injury waiver.
Yeah, that one, so good, Karen. That's great. So that's a 0 out of 5. I'm a 0 out of 5 on them. I don't know that industry. But here's what I want you guys to do. Keep writing your questions down as I go through. Let me make sure I roll through the specifics. Because I want to leave a lot of time for questions, right? I have a flyer. Now, some things I'm glossing over, right? Some things I'm not. Serif cell. Serifs, which are these little things on letters, like little twirly things. Like Helvetica is a block font, right? Serif cell. So I use Times Roman because it's more attractive to potential buyers. So it's a good example even on the flyer where even though this is an overall course, the type of font you use helps. The type of color. Do you know red doesn't sell? I never knew that. I read all these books when I was a kid. Like, red doesn't sell, blue sells, and yellow sells, but blue's your highest seller. So even the color you use, be careful, okay? Not a big deal, but God's in the details, right? So we got our flyer, we're putting on our flyer. We're gonna get calls. We're probably gonna get calls. It sounds so simple, but you get a call and you show up on time, you give an estimate. I always want a proposal sheet. I want it to be professional, right? Proposal, make it look professional. That's something you invest $10 in, by the way. I don't know if they still have Office Depots and Office Maxes or whatever, but they probably do. But like you buy a little proposal thing. You don't necessarily need your logo on it for your first job. You show up. Now, this is going to sound so trivial, but again, adults, us, we complicate everything. Always show up on time. You look professional. You don't need a tuxedo or a gown, but you should look, with your act together. I do a lot of coaching. I do coaching with kids, and we got this program called Inmates to Entrepreneurs, and, people going on there with their hair down to their, whatever. Hey, look, you got to look professional. You got to look the part. You show up on time. You're courteous. You ask a lot of questions. Don't talk. Like right now, Todd, I'm talking at these guys, right? I mean, that's interesting, but they're more interested in talking. So when I go see a prospect, I want to ask questions. Well, when's the last time you painted this room? What kind of paint do you like? Do you like latex? Do you like semi-gloss? Do you like gloss? Do you like gloss on the trim? I've actually done painting, you see, for Tom, the things I did this. He was the painter, but I've done painting, right? Do you want gloss on the trim? Do you, blah, blah, blah. When do you want it done? But get the prospect talking. You submit the proposal, and you get business. Now, what I just mentioned to you, very important for people to listen, right? Really get this, right? We determine what type of business we want to be in. We do advertising, very targeted. We use flyers if we could. We could use social media. We visit prospects. We make proposals. We're listening a lot during that time. We show up on time. Really, there's lots of, it's like a burrito, right? We got the burrito. We put a little information in there so far, right? There's a lot more information I could throw into that burrito, but that's the base of it. And A couple of specific things I need to mention about sales, which is painful. Some of you are listening are better salespeople than I am. Maybe all of you. Some have never sold before. A couple of things so we got advertise through flyers, maybe social media, maybe a website, done, check. We got to know how many to put out. We're going to put out maybe 50, 100, 200 flyers. Second, we're going to get calls. People are going to contact us. We make appointments. We show up on time. We look professional. We make a little proposal. We're doing a ton of listening during that time, right? A ton of listening. But Todd, I'm going to donate 5 minutes to this. Why don't more people start businesses? I think one of the reasons is that they don't understand the proposal to success ratio. So for example, when I was doing landscaping, I knew for every 3 proposals, and this is really an important part of the program, and I really got to nail this one for you. I just want to make sure I'm clear. I knew that for every 3 proposals I made, I would get 1 job, right? If you go door to door, you're selling, you might have to go to 100 houses to get 1 job. But for every 3 proposals I got out there, I would get 1 job. And I might be wrong. As I recall, I needed 100 flyers to get 3 proposals. So in this way, think back. I want 1 job every 2 weeks, or whatever the math is. I don't know, and that job's going to pay $1,000 or $2,000, whatever business you're in. How many questions you have to ask to get that job? For me in contracting was always 3. I had to get 3 proposals out, and in order to get 3 proposals, I had to get out in the day. This is the 80s. In the 90s, Nirvana was the big popular band. And they don't play this music anymore. But anyway, I had to get out 100 in order to get 3 appointments. And then I would have 3 appointments, 3 proposals, and I would get 1 job. So therefore, it was 100 flyers to get 1 job. And by the way, if you're listening, I'm happy to answer questions I'm unqualified to answer. I do it all the time. That's a joke, bad one. Like legal stuff, LLC, incorporation, all that. And I'm happy to do that. I'll do the best I can. I'm not a lawyer. I'll do what I can, right? But remember that ratio. When my kids were really young, I wanted to make sure they got entrepreneurial experience. They were about 10. And I said, go out in the neighborhood and go start a lawn service business, like any self-respecting 10-year-old. Go 11-year-old, go start a business. Like, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, just take your lawnmower and go door to door in the neighborhood and ask people if they want their lawn cut. Well, my kids came back after about a half an hour. It's funny. It's funny the stuff I learned when I was just a little kid about being an entrepreneur. But after about a half an hour, they come back and they said, it didn't work. We didn't get any customers. And it's like, wow. I remember that, right? But what they didn't understand is you might have to talk to 50 people to get 1 job. So I guess, we advertise, we have an appointment, we give a proposal, but on the proposal end, you got to talk to enough people. We have an event planner, a lady who does event planning, and she's like, well, how do I get business? I'm like, wow, I don't know, right? But event planning, you have to go to a lot of meetups, a lot of meetings. I mean, you got to be giving out tons of business cards. You can do social media. You can write articles about event planning and, get your word out that way, but you better meet a lot of people. That's what I would do. And you could start that business for less than $1,000. But those are kind of structurally the things you do. Now, Todd, I don't go off script to be entertaining. I really don't do that. I mean, to me, people don't know this. I'm going to plug you guys again. We have a state in North Carolina, in the United States. There's 100 counties. We have 58 community colleges at last count. We have 54 small business centers. And to me, it's one of the most underutilized services in the state. People don't realize that. They don't have those in Texas or Connecticut. So remember, you can go get advice from the small business centers in your area. And I'm not just saying that as a cheap plug. I've known the small business centers for 30 years, but use those resources. And I guess I would sort of make sure I'm doing okay for time. Not end, but I want to get questions. This sounds really lame. I mean, it really does, but get a friend, right? I mean, I've been studying entrepreneurship my whole life. I'm 56 years old. It's been my whole life. Since I was like 10, I've been doing this. Why don't more people start businesses? I think you're lonely. You're afraid, right? You're afraid you're going to fail. This feeling of isolation. I write about this for Inc. magazine, and I can't put it in words, but people are afraid. They have fear, especially as adults. We're afraid to fail, right? First of all, there is no failure. I mean, these statistics you hear about business failure are to me, they're way overdone. It's like you say, well, 4 out of 5 businesses fail, whatever. I don't think that's true. I think what happens is people just get tired of doing the business. That doesn't mean they fail. But my point is, people don't start businesses because they're afraid to fail. So join your chamber, get involved with the Small Business Center, try to meet other entrepreneurs who you can talk with, who can mentor you. And entrepreneurs are really great at that. I mean, they're really great at helping people. I mean, that's been my experience. So it's kind of generic, but again, we got a lot to compress in an hour. So
Brian, cheap plugs notwithstanding, we'll take any kind of plug. We've got some great questions for you if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready, man.
I'm going to work backwards here. Sean asks, how do you cover expense materials, and highlights in your particular example where you're talking about painting, for example,
Great.
The amount of the materials where a can of paint can cost up to $50, for example.
Well, listen, Sean, people don't realize it, but I paid Sean $50 to ask that question today, which is a joke. I did not pay Sean. But Sean, you get a star. I'm going to put a star on your refrigerator today. Do they still do that? I don't know. Put a star on your refrigerator. It's a great question. That's why these have to be, Todd, these sessions to me have to be driven by questions. So great question. So I do a quote for a $500 room. And this is a good question, Sean. This is a good example where you can start a business with literally no money, or very little bit, right? We get our flyers out, we give the estimate, we do a quote to paint a room, whatever, for $500. And you have these things called paint. You got to get paint on the wall. You got brushes, you got tarps, you got ladders, right? What you do is you get what's called a deposit. So on that $500 contract, you get 30% up front, 20%, 25%, roughly. And you get that when they sign the contract, and you take that money to buy supplies. That's a wonderful question. Really good question. And honestly, that, like, up until I started the laundromat business in my late 20s, that's how I started every business. But you use the contract as a source of financing to pay for your supplies. I hope that's clear to everybody. That's a very good question.
Great answer. Let's see, going back even a little more. Cheryl asked, as a goal, what would be the percentage upon building capital if they were going to go for a loan in order to get bigger money?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me not answer that, and I'll answer it. Let me not answer that question, and then I'll answer what I think is the question. And I don't want to, it's hard to have this come out the right way, but I'm going to do what I can. I would never recommend someone borrowing money to start a low capital service business, to start the business. And the reason, I will answer the question, the reason is that we don't know what our cash flow is going to be. It may take us a month to get cash flow. It may take us 2 months. It may take us a week. We don't know what the cash flow is going to be. So to start a low capital service business for $100, $200, $500, I don't want to borrow any money. I definitely, and more than that, no one's going to give you money, because a bank, I mean, people don't realize this. I mean, I didn't, when I was like starting out, I thought banks were like, had big vaults full of cash, and those big round things you open and pull money on. They just were rich, right? For every $100 a bank lends, they can only lose $1. Did you know that? Remember that. for every $100 out there, they can only lose $1. So are they going to finance a startup? I wouldn't, would you? So remember that. Now I know the SBA program. That's why I want to talk about that in a minute. I really do get that. I was a contractor for the SBA, so I totally get it. But as a rule, people are not going to lend you money to start a business, and you don't want to, because that was one big mistake I made in my 20s. I over leveraged. I mean, I owed millions of dollars, like $5-10 million. It was crazy. And I mean, I paid it back, but it was like, it created incredible stress on me. So we are proponents of low capital, less than $500, no borrowed money. Now, to answer your question, I don't know. I want to say her, Todd. What's her first name? I'm sorry.
Cheryl.
I don't know Cheryl's particular circumstance. So if she's in business and she's been in business for 2 or 3 years and she's got cash flow and she's ready to expand, then you might be able to go to a bank. But I just FYI, and remember, I'm trying to cover a lot of ground, 40 years in 40 minutes, right? So I apologize if I don't go into too much detail, but I think it's important. Banks won't lend unless you've been in business 2 or 3 years. They want these things called tax returns, right? They want to look at a tax return and know what your cash flow is. Will they lend if you have cash flow but not collateral? Yes, they will. Collateral is a secondary source of repayment if you don't pay your bills. So that's why a lot of people get into real estate businesses, because you can borrow and you have cash flow, income from the property, but if you don't pay, the bank can foreclose, but they don't want to do that. So I don't really know the specific circumstances, but if you want to get money to expand your business, you can go to a bank. The SBA program is good, by the way. They have a guarantee program, but go to an SBA lender that does a lot of SBA lending. Don't go to a bank where you have to teach them what the SBA is. There are specialized SBA lenders that are really good. And there's a lot of people who, in a lot of banks that say they do SBA loans that really don't do it. So good. Tom's telling me I got 10:45. So let's get some more questions. Just right now, we got the burrito and we put some chicken in there. We got some tomatoes and cheese, but it's not filled. So for the next 10 minutes, whatever, Todd, I'd like to get questions where people help me fill in that burrito, okay?
We have one direct question. Is some other examples of types of businesses that can be considered capital businesses?
You're breaking up a little bit, bud.
Can you hear me?
I can sort of hear you, yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me? There we go.
That's all right.
Asking what other examples of low capital businesses would you recommend?
Yeah, you might want to help. It's fine. I can hear Todd, but not great. Amazing this technology ever works. That's as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing wrong with what we're doing here, what he's doing. What examples of low capital businesses? Well, and I want the room. You guys can help me out. Write them on the board. Car detailing, lawn service, painting, general contractor, power washing, house cleaning. You know, people don't like cleaning their house, right? If you guys want to write some on the board, let's write down like 10 or 15 more. There's a sheet here. Photographer. I can't read without my reading glasses. Just so write them down. Other businesses I've started: painting, house cleaning, garage cleaning. But the way, I mean, it seems lame, but it's so true. Like if you got a pickup truck, you can make money. You can pick up stuff. Tree service businesses. A lot of my businesses, dump service, mechanic, oil change, gutter cleaning. Like really, that's a business, right? Some landscapers do gutter cleaning, but I'd pay $50 to have my gutters cleaned. When I was in my 20s, I'd go up 40 feet on a 3-story house or whatever on these ladders, and it's crazy. It's amazing I didn't get killed because I was doing house painting. I don't want to do that anymore. So I don't like going even 10 feet in the air. So I'll pay someone to do my gutters for $50. Dog walking, dog sitting. We don't have to I think people get the idea, but any personal service business, if you're good at doing websites or you're a nurse or, I mean, some of you are parents, right? Really babysitting is a business. I mean, you may not want to do that. Doing some daycare for adults, that's a business too. Well, Charlie's right on the back here. Does it mean I have to turn around?
Brian, you got two great related questions.
Right.
How do you stay motivated when cash flow is slow or inconsistent and increase those client numbers?
Yeah, it is a great question. And again, let me not answer it and then I'll answer it. And I'm going to get Charlie out of my screen. Charlie, you need to go away. Bye. Nice to see you though, Charlie. Thanks for stopping by. So anyway, I'm kidding around, but how do you not get discouraged? Well, first you're going to get discouraged, but let me do some workarounds. I'm a big proponent for starting a business part-time. What's wrong with that? You keep a job, start a business part-time. What's wrong with it? And you get your cash flow going up. So minimize your risk. The reason that's such a great question, Todd, is because why don't people start businesses? They think of it as jumping off a cliff into a big thing of lava. Like, go part-time, right? Keep your overhead low. Start your business in your home, right? Keep your overhead low so every dollar you get, you're profitable very early. I can't emphasize that enough. It's so important. Make money. But now let me answer the specific question. You will be discouraged and you will be humiliated if you're an entrepreneur. Absolutely. There's a lot of mythology about entrepreneurship. You read about these people being billionaires. Don't you get depressed about that? This is why I don't use social media. You go to Yahoo News and everybody's great looking and they're all wealthy and everybody's a billionaire, by the way. That's the new one. I'm a billionaire. It's depressing. That's why I don't even want to look at the news anymore. Perfect looking people making tons of money. And I'm like, wow, must be wonderful. So my point to you on a serious note, trying to keep you awake here, but on a serious note is just realize that you're part of a crowd of people, entrepreneurs, and you're going to get discouraged and you're going to be tight on money. Try to minimize, keep your overhead low. Don't be spending a lot of money. So do it part-time. Start the business from home and grow, okay? But you will be discouraged. And the reason that's a great question is because, again, there's a lot of mythology. When I was a kid getting out of college, if you became an entrepreneur, you weren't necessarily a loser, but you were like, oh, that person can't get a job. It's changed. Entrepreneurship is popular, right? But some parts of being an entrepreneur haven't changed. It can be depressing. And you will be tight on cash sometimes. So you learn to work through it. So that's the best way I can answer that question. It's very good.
Something kind of related to that, Brian, we've got two from Lester and Michelle that kind of tie hand in hand, especially when you're starting, is how do you do cost estimating, or what would you recommend for cost estimating?
Yeah, it's wonderful. And Todd, I want to answer that, but I want to be thoughtful, okay? So I don't want to avoid this. It depends. So when I was doing contracting, it was always a third for materials, a third for labor. A third for materials and labor, a third for overhead, and a third for profit. So I would calculate my materials at $100. I'd say it's $100. And then I would go 3 times that in contracting. Is that about right, by the way, or not really? Is it 4? I don't know. I don't know how you charge, but that's how I did it. I would build from materials, but some businesses don't have materials, right? So in that case, let me try to nail that one. In the painting business, you wouldn't charge based on materials. You would charge based on your time. So the way you would do that one, that's a good example, is you'd say, well, I want to make $50 an hour. And you go to, this is why the questions are really, really powerful. You go and you say, this is a 10-hour room. 10 hours times $50 is $500. That's what I want to make. And now I add my cost to it. The paint for a $500 room is going to be about $100, $150. And the other supplies might be $100. So that might be about a $700 estimate. I hope I'm answering that, because it depends on the business. I was in the coin laundromat business in my late 20s, early 30s. And you don't charge based on cost there. You look at the market competition and you try to add up what your overhead's going to be per month and try to figure it that way. And the last thing I'd say about that, I don't want to run us against the wall here, I want to make sure we have enough time, is the last one, because I want to get to the next question, is it's going to be driven by the type of business you're in. And ultimately, it's always what the customer is going to pay. That's what's going to drive how much you charge. I hope that gives you some framework. Another great question, by the way.
Brian, I've got two from Robin and Caroline again. I think it's Caroline again, who are asking specifically, they're both writers, if you had suggestions for people who are writers trying to get started as a business.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of writing they do, you know what I was saying, but I don't know. I guess you would just charge for your time, and whatever the market rate is in your industry. Like maybe people pay writers $5 an hour, $500 an hour. I don't know, but you would charge for your time. That's a good question. But again, it depends on your industry. So that's why, Todd, one of the things is I try to get away from checklists, because checklists very rarely apply to every kind of business. But if I'm a writer and I want to make $100 an hour or $200 an hour or whatever, and the market will bear that, that's what I'll charge. Oh, by the way, that's why I like the questions more than me just talking at this screen with Todd, and Todd's still on my screen here, but I like the questions because this will help you. In my experience, most new businesses don't charge enough. So remember that. And there's a lot of experience behind that. I mean, vastly, they don't charge enough. And I think because they don't understand their costs. Have any of you gone, you call a plumber, you know, I've done this, right? And your toilet's stopped up and you call the plumber. He comes over and he charges you $65 for like 5 minutes. Well, there was a time in my life where that was a lot of money. And I was like, it really bummed me out. It got me kind of mad. I was like, $65 for 5 minutes of work. But what I didn't understand that I understand now is, yeah, it is $65 because he knows or she knows you got to get the truck there. You're not making $65 every 5 minutes, right? There's idle time. You got overhead, you got to pay electric, you got gas. So in my experience, most startups do not charge enough. And it's one of the reasons they get discouraged, because it's a bummer, you know, you don't want to be out working hard and not making money. Got to make money, got to make profit. By the way, Tom just give me a note here. I think it's fair. His writing's like mine. I can't read it totally, but it's 15% material, 55% labor, and 30% profit or margin. He calls it margin. So that my numbers were off a little bit on that one, but you get an idea and you get a feel for that. Oh, one other thing, Todd, I don't want to run us against the wall. We got 3.5 minutes, but there are these organizations called trade associations, and there's like 2,500 of them in the US. Like there's the Coin Laundry Association of America, believe it or not. There's a Writer Association of America. There's a painting contractor for the world or whatever. And these are trade publications. They're very, very inexpensive to subscribe to them, but they have like these little magazines and they give these all little hints about painting. When you're doing corners, do it this way. Don't do that. Use tape here. Don't use tape there. Use an angle brush, and how to save money and stuff like that. In my late 20s and early 30s, I mean, say I made a fortune, but proud's the wrong word. I was happy to run a very good laundromat chain, and I made a lot of money. And it was driven by the trade association. I would read all the articles, and it's amazing what you learn there. Like, you got to change your lint filters every 4 hours, not every day. You know, it seems like a small thing, right? Another $100 of profit. But I wouldn't have known that, especially since I never did it when I was a kid. Even my mother kept telling me to do it. So, but let's take a couple more questions and we'll wrap up.
You have one related to your painting business. Nikki asks, would you recommend starting a painting business with no experience as a painter?
Nah, that's really wonderful. Yeah. Let me think, because I don't want to give a 1, and I know I can't give her a 5 out of 5. Nikki, I would probably work for someone for a little while to learn what I'm doing. You could do that. I got into the coin laundry business. I didn't know anything except for I liked the smell of detergent. When I was a kid, we used to go to the coin laundromat. I love the place. It's like, I like the smell of detergent, you know? I was a weird little kid, I guess. But I loved laundromats because of the smell and the ambiance. It reminded me of being a kid. I didn't know much about them, Nikki, so I just went into the business. But if it's me and I want to increase my probability of success, I would go be a contractor, a painter. Like, you know, how much paint do you put on that angle brush for the corner of that room? That's a skill. So I don't know if I would want to learn on the job there. But you don't need to do it for a year. You do it for a couple of months. You'll be ready to roll. What a wonderful question, by the way.
I have a really good question here.
Yeah, sorry. Good. Yeah.
Theodore was asking, and he said, can you briefly discuss the importance of choosing a business name, which of course you would need for your flyers and advertising, and then making sure that it's registered?
Yeah, it's a very technical question, and there's an answer to that. In the old days, i.e. 5-10 years ago, I might have named it Brian Hamilton Foundation. No, I'm just kidding. That's the name of our foundation. Brian Hamilton's Painting. For most businesses, well, let me break it up. If it's a product business and I'm selling on the internet, I want a weird name, a very weird name that doesn't conflict with another trademark or copyright, okay? If it's a personal service corp where I'm doing painting, Brian's Painting might be fine. So it depends on the business. And I think I answered that. I hope I did. But if it's a business that has like a national reach or whatever, like a technical thing, or you're doing drop shipping on the internet or whatever, I want to pick a business where I'm not going to get a letter from a lawyer saying that I'm in trademark violation. Because I've got those letters, by the way, they're not fun. But if I'm doing a personal service corp, I might just name it after me. By the way, it is exactly 11, Todd. So I'll roll however you want to.
If people want to hang for a minute, we're going to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes, but I've got one more really great question directly related to you. And then I think we'll close with that one. And we apologize for anybody if they didn't get their question answered, but we can always follow up. Somebody was begging to have you back. But the question was Inmates to Entrepreneurs a nonprofit because they're trying to do something they think is kind of similar? It
is. By the way, we have people calling who are begging to have me come back, by the way. It's our people. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm goofing around. It's not our people, but I don't know. I can't see the people, so make them laugh today a little. Yeah, Inmates to Entrepreneur is a nonprofit, and I started that with Reverend Harris 27 years ago, and we help people start businesses who have been incarcerated or judicially involved, is the way you say it now. But of course, our foundation is all about helping people start businesses. Hey, Todd. Once again, small business centers are terrific. I know that. Todd and I are not best friends. I'm saying that from my heart. Use the small business centers, get information, get mentorship, and learn. But I love being an entrepreneur. It changed my life, and I hope today has helped you guys, help you out a little bit.
Well, we appreciate it, Brian. We've got a lot of other great questions we're going to follow up, but we have recommended, and as you've recommended many times, the SBC. I'm going to throw up here real quick. I'm going to steal the screen from you.
Okay.
If I can. Let me do this here real quick. I want to thank everybody for hanging on as much as they did. I hope everybody can see sorry, my slide's skipping around here. The the link, we've put together a brief white paper that actually came from the U.S. Chamber. They did an article on this topic about a week ago, so it was serendipity. We put it together with a couple of other things with folks from the Hamilton Foundation. If you go to this link, bit.ly/SBCN 1000, there's a lot more great information there. Brian, like I said, people are asking to have you back in the future, so we're probably gonna have to do this again sometime. So,
Yeah, of course. Any way I can help out. Thanks a lot, Todd. I appreciate it.
thanks, Brian. And remind everybody else, when you get this information, you're going to get surveys through your small business center. Make sure you indicate that you do want to have Brian back, and we'd love to see if we can make this happen again in the future. Thanks everybody for being here. Sorry if we didn't get your questions answered. I think we got most of them, but we do appreciate it. And if you have questions, you can follow up with either anybody from Brian Hamilton Foundation or the SBCs. Anything else, Brian?
No, good luck to everybody.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Have a great day.